Since the foundation of civilization, human societies have strived towards a perfect world, motivated by material desires such as safety and abundant resources, or religious ideals of righteous existence. Nevertheless, this aspiration more often than not took the form of violent conflict, continuing in bloody fashion intermittently over the course of history, reaching a devastating culmination in the 20th century when utopian visions of a proletariat dictatorship of Marx and Engels or Aryan domination of Hitler devastated the world in a war of unprecedented scale and destructiveness. The utopian genre of a perfect world was reversed into dystopia, a vision in which society has failed to maintain the values of individual equality and freedom due to the rise of a totalitarian state, apocalyptic events, or insidious technological innovation. Consequently, dystopian fiction exaggerates aspects of human nature like violence, xenophobia, or the lust for power, in order to comment on the circumstances present in the composer's society at the time the text is created. Two such dystopian texts are the novel The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood and the film adaptation of Alan Moore's comic V for Vendetta by James McTeague. Both imagine a totalitarian state, whether theocratic in The Handmaid's Tale or fascist in V for Vendetta, and both are influenced by the conservative climate of the 1980s, when they were originally written. The Handmaid's Tale reflects the religious and conservative movements of the Ronald Reagan era in the United States as a pushback against the advancements made by women's rights organizations, which achieved the legalization of abortion, widespread access to contraception, and greater political participation of women, all during a decade of declining birth rates. Hence the focus of the novel's totalitarian state, Gilead, on childbirth, forcing fertile women into bearing children for military commanders in order to restore the waning population. Shown in this quote, where the protagonist and narrator of the novel, Offred, employs several metaphors that all have the same meaning, to emphasize the reduction of women to their biological functions. In a similar manner, V for Vendetta signifies the oppressive policies of Thatcherism towards homosexuals in the UK, and more recently, George Bush's war on terror, following the events of 9/11. Due to their similarities, the texts present comparable ideas. For instance, they illustrate the conflict of societal organization, the balance between two extremes: anarchy, where there is no governing body or hierarchy, and totalitarianism, where all power is concentrated in the hands of a single individual or group. More recently, this idea has transformed into the question of how easily a democratic society can give away its power in desperate times in exchange for the promise of safety and stability, and allow the formation of a totalitarian state, like fascist Germany emerging from the Great Depression, or the authoritative measures granted to governments during the current pandemic. This theme is visible in this line from The Handmaid's Tale, where the repetition of freedom in different contexts portrays the nature of each ideology. In V for Vendetta, this dichotomy is demonstrated symbolically with the titular character being based on Guy Fawkes, a member of the Gunpowder Plot that tried to blow up the Palace of Westminster as vengeance for decades of Catholic oppression in England. In addition, V's symbol alludes to the anarchist A. Opposite that, the Norse Fire Party resembles fascist Germany, in the colours and symbols it uses, its militaristic parades, and the genocide of minorities and political opponents. This is supported more subtly with contrasting lighting, as the film tries to position the viewer to empathize with V's cause, where all the secure places in the film, such as V's hideout or Gordon Dietrich's home, are lit with warm, natural light, whilst the outside world and the spaces of the party are lit with cold, blue, artificial lamps. Because totalitarian states concentrate power in a single organization or person, both Atwood and McTeague personify the state as an animate being, and utilize the narrative archetype of overcoming the monster to highlight the struggle of their protagonists. Camera angles and composition are used to highlight this imbalance of power in V for Vendetta, as we see the antagonist, Sutler, portrayed from a low angle and taking up nearly all the space in the frame, like a monstrous colossus that has to be defeated. This is reversed in the end of the film, when the state has collapsed and the people of London march on the palace, so numerous that the crowd overflows the frame without a visible end, enhancing its perceived size. Offred's conflict is similar, although it's internal rather than external like V's. The state's use of biblical allusion presents it as an omnipotent being, with constant surveillance and propaganda, as these interactions of handmaids demonstrate. Finally, the overarching idea of these texts, and generally of dystopian literature, is the fundamental role of narrative in the human condition, and the complex language required to construct it. Complex language that can be used to imagine, describe, and create abstract ideas and worlds is the very thing that differentiates our species from the rest present on Earth. It is through language that early humans have come to create an abstract network of stories upon which they could cooperate, a shared ancestry, god, or ideology that allowed them to build civilizations and escape the cycle of natural selection, shaping the world as they saw fit. That is why V hoards books and other forms of art that the Norsefly party has seized. This wealth of knowledge is symbolized by the dense atmosphere in his hideout that envelops the characters, compared to the empty, spacious halls or offices of the party. This juxtaposition is also present in V's elaborate knowledge of literature and theatrical manner, obvious from his alliterative speech and frequent citations of Shakespeare.
We're off to blame, in this 'tis too much proved, that with devotion's visage and pious action we do sugar o'er the devil himself.
In this line, he describes the fingerman, an embodiment of the state which abuses its power, whose language and appearance are blunt and unkempt in comparison. Offred's creative use of language literally demonstrates this idea. By constantly experimenting with language and examining the meaning of words or phrases, she preserves her humanity amidst the horrific system. Her vivid and creative articulation is a rebellion against the norms of Gilead, where women are prohibited from reading, and fixed language is imposed by the regime to instill despotic values. This is evident when Offred contemplates dusk, using dramatic imagery and a simile to describe an ordinary event. This is solidified at the end of the novel when Atwood reveals that Offred's memories are an approximate reconstruction of some 30 cassette tapes, indicating that the state of Gilead has fallen. And even though the reliability of these recordings is questionable, by surviving in the Gileadian regime and maintaining her humanity, Offred is able to describe the horrors of the past to future generations. Despite these motivations and methods being morally ambiguous, and some exactly the same as Norsefly's, namely his use of violence, torture, or straight-up murder to achieve his goals, it is his narrative of a restoration of freedom and equality that prevails over Norsefly's reinstatement of a religious nation-state. To conclude, these texts continue to resonate with audiences in the present, while serving as a reminder of the past, exploring the question of social organization and the ability of language to construct and control ideas that have the potential to change the world. These concerns are especially relevant today, as society creates and consumes more narratives and stories than ever before, and it is becoming increasingly difficult to identify which of them will assist in improving the world, and which could spiral out into a dystopian future.